film opens with David and Amy, a married couple, driving home after a family gathering. The road ahead, though familiar, quickly takes an unexpected turn. Instead of sticking to the highway, David opts for a shortcut. The decision feels minor at first, but it soon sets off a series of unsettling events. As they drive, a raccoon suddenly appears in the middle of the road. David swerves to avoid it, jolting Amy from her nap, her disoriented gaze falling on the darkened road ahead. The long journey and their mounting exhaustion weigh heavily on both of them. They start to lose track of where they are, the car's sputtering engine adding to the sense of unease. With no clear sense of direction, they rely on an old map tucked in the glove box. The unfamiliarity of the route only deepens the tension. David, however, is more aware of what's happening beneath the surface. He had purposely chosen the longer path, hoping to use the time with Amy to talk, knowing that the looming question of divorce hung between them. After a while, they spot a gas station in an old abandoned building by the side of the road. Desperate to check the car, David pulls over. But to their surprise, the station is eerily empty. The stillness stretches on until a man suddenly appears, breaking the silence with a question about where they're headed. David tells the man that they're headed to Donny, but the car seems to be breaking down. The man at the station listens carefully and then informs them that they've already passed the road to Donny. This town is about 48 kilometers back. He offers to check their car to make sure they can continue on without further issues. A quick inspection, and the car is fixed. It purrs to life, smooth and steady. Before they leave, David asks for directions to the nearest highway. The man provides clear, detailed instructions, making sure they're set for the next leg of the journey. Feeling relieved, David hands him $20 as a token of thanks. With the car running again, David and Amy follow the man's directions, hope rising as they drive away. But it's short-lived. The engine sputters again, and this time it's clear the car isn't going any further. Forced to pull over, they leave the car behind, walking back to the gas station, the weight of their frustration settling in. Not long after, they return to find the gas station and its garage closed for the night. The silence of the deserted station felt heavier now, amplifying the frustration that had been building all evening. Amy suggested they return to the car and sleep in it until morning, but David refused. He couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to find the man from the station, hoping he could offer a solution. Nearby, a hotel stood open 24 hours, offering a glimmer of hope. They headed there, hoping for a break. But as soon as they entered, a loud, chilling scream echoed through the lobby, freezing them both. Amy's instincts kicked in, and suspicion gripped her. She urged David to leave, but he pressed on, determined to find answers. He rang the bell at the reception desk, the sound too sharp in the otherwise quiet air. Soon, a bespectacled man appeared, introducing himself as the hotel manager. He explained the scream away as just a noise from a film he was watching. David, not interested in small talk, asked directly about the gas station attendant. The manager told him the man had already gone home and wouldn't return until morning. With no other choice and no expertise in car mechanics, David realized they had no option but to wait. At that moment, the manager offered them a room for the night, conveniently located right next to the gas station. Reluctantly, David agreed, paying for the one-night stay. After checking in, David and Amy were assigned to room number 4. The room seemed fine at first, no immediate signs of trouble. But as they looked around, it was clear the room was old and in desperate need of maintenance. The walls were peeling and the tap water ran brown, dirty. Not only that, the blankets were dusty, worn thin from years of use, but they had no choice but to settle in. The long journey had taken its toll on both of them, and all they wanted was rest. But just as they started to settle, the phone in the room rang, breaking the silence. Amy answered, but there was only dead air on the other end. Before they could make sense of it, there was a knock on the door. David got up, irritated, but when he opened it, no one was there. Confused, he returned to the bed, only for the phone to ring again. Still no sound on the other end. The knocking started again, this time from both the door and the door connecting to the neighboring room. Number 3. Frustration built in David as the disturbances continued. He was too tired for this. He demanded, louder this time, that whoever was causing the noise come out and settle things. But when he approached the door, everything went silent. David had had enough. He stormed out of the room and made his way to the front desk, determined to complain to the manager. David walked down to the front desk, frustration bubbling inside him. He had to confront the manager about the disturbances coming from room 3. The manager's response, however, was calm and unsettling. There were no other guests staying at the hotel that night. Just David and Amy. Despite this, David wasn't convinced. He insisted the manager check the situation himself and even pointed to the gun hanging above the door, a suggestion that didn't go unnoticed. After a long hesitation, the manager reluctantly agreed to investigate. Moments later, David returned to the room, still uneasy. He told Amy the manager would handle the issue, but she wasn't reassured. Her instincts told her something wasn't right. She urged David to leave, but his exhaustion weighed heavier than her concerns. He was too tired to entertain the idea of leaving. Trying to distract himself, David turned on the TV, but none of the channels worked. The poor reception was puzzling for such a large hotel. Frustrated, he picked up a cassette tape that had been sitting on top of the TV. With nothing else to do, he inserted it into the player, the static sound filling the room. At first, David assumed the video was just another random horror film, a disturbing scene of torture. But as he watched, a creeping realization set in. The setting in the video, everything from the curtains to the TV stand to the lights, was identical to their hotel room. Every detail matched, sending a chill down his spine. He then noticed a hidden camera, positioned so cleverly that it blended seamlessly into the room, nearly impossible to detect. The room felt suddenly suffocating, the truth of what they were witnessing hitting him with a sickening clarity. Just then the lights flickered and went out, the darkness enveloping them. A knock at the door followed, sharp and urgent, only heightening the tension. David's mind raced, piecing the disturbing clues together. He began to suspect the manager was involved, perhaps orchestrating the nightmare they were trapped in, allowing them to watch the sinister recording. Panic surged when David realized the bathroom window was nailed shut, a clear indication that someone had been preparing to trap them. With time running out, David quickly formulated a plan, starting by turning off the lights to minimize their chances of being seen. As they tried to make their escape, 2 men appeared in front of them, their twisted faces full of malice. They chased David and Amy relentlessly, their footsteps echoing in the night. In the chaos, Amy dropped the only cell phone they had, lying abandoned in the yard as they ran. But they didn't stop. They reached the safety of their room, slamming the door shut behind them, knowing the danger was far from over. Unfortunately, Amy, tasked with opening the bathroom window, was spotted by the 2 men. The silence that followed was unnerving, the tension palpable. David knew they couldn't stay in the room much longer. He decided to make a break for it, heading toward the public phone outside the hotel. Moving carefully, he slipped past the men, the weight of every step heavy in his chest. Reaching the phone, David dialed 911, his desperation clear. But instead of the usual response, the call was strangely redirected to the hotel's line. The voice on the other end wasn't 911, it was the manager pretending to be the emergency dispatcher. Realization hit hard, but before David could react, the screech of tires pierced the night. The 2 men, now in a car, were chasing him relentlessly. He ran, heart racing, managing to make it back to the hotel and slip inside the room just in time. It became clear that the men weren't just trying to kill them. They were keeping David and Amy locked inside, their every move monitored by hidden cameras. The cameras linked directly to the manager's room, captured their every struggle. The footage on the cassette tapes revealed the manager's disturbing obsession, his sick fascination with watching others suffer. Shortly after, David moved through the bathroom, his mind racing for any chance of escape. As his foot brushed the doormat, he heard a faint, unsettling sound, a wooden board shifting beneath it. His heart skipped a beat as he knelt to investigate, lifting the doormat to reveal the hidden board. Beneath it, a secret passage lay waiting. The narrow tunnel could be their way out. Turning to Amy, he tried to convince her to follow him into the dark corridor. But as he looked up, he saw her standing by the window, eyes fixed on a truck that had pulled up in the middle of the night. The headlights cut through the darkness, and for a moment they thought it might be another guest. Hope flickered, and they decided to try one last attempt for help. But as the man from the truck approached their room, the 2 psychopaths, who had been lurking in the shadows, stepped forward. David and Amy rushed to the door, eager to tell the man about the danger they were facing. However, when the man reached them, it became clear he was already connected to the hotel manager. He handed over a box of cassette tapes, the tapes filled with footage of their torment. The recordings weren't staged, they were real. The manager had been selling the horrific footage for profit. Feeling deceived and desperate, David and Amy turned toward the hidden passage. They slipped into the dark, winding tunnel, moving swiftly through the twisting corridor. Each step felt like a heartbeat, every corner turning them deeper into the unknown. Eventually, they stumbled into the manager's room, where several monitors blinked with hidden camera feeds from various hotel rooms. It was a chilling sight, the true scope of the nightmare they had unwittingly walked into. Amy spotted a phone connected to an external line and, without hesitation, dialed 911. Before Amy could give the address, the door suddenly burst open. The manager appeared, flanked by the two psychopaths, and the phone call was instantly cut off. It became clear that the manager knew they had found his hideout. Without wasting a second, he ordered the psychopaths to find them. David and Amy, heart racing, dashed down the hallway, trying to evade the men hunting them. One of the psychopaths tried to break into the bathroom of room 4, forcing them to retreat further. Moments later, they stumbled upon a storage room and quickly slipped inside. David, panicked but focused, shoved a heavy cabinet in front of the door to block any pursuit. The sound of footsteps grew closer, the tension thick in the air. Time felt like it was standing still until the distant wail of sirens broke through the silence. At first, David and Amy couldn't believe it. However, Amy suggested that 911 must have traced their call, and the thought sparked a flicker of hope. Moments later, a police car arrived at the hotel, its flashing lights cutting through the dark. The officer at the front requested permission to search the building. The manager hesitated, then allowed access, leading the officer to room 3. David and Amy were frozen in fear as they heard the sound of footsteps outside the storage room. Their hearts pounded as one of the psychopaths approached, but by sheer luck, they remained undetected. Meanwhile, the police officer, granted access to the hotel by the manager, began sifting through the disturbing footage, each video more gruesome than the last. As the officer pieced together the horrific truth that the torturous scenes were happening right there, inside the hotel, he drew his gun and began searching for the manager who had already fled. David and Amy, seizing their chance, crept behind the officer, shouting that they were victims of the horrors they had seen. The officer, quickly understanding the situation, led them toward the police car, offering them a fleeting glimmer of hope. But as they attempted to escape, they realized the car had been sabotaged. The officer, panicking, tried to fix the engine, but before he could make any progress, the psychopaths appeared. They swiftly captured the officer and, without hesitation, ended his life. The chilling realization hit David and Amy. There was no safety, no way out. In a frantic panic, David smashed the bathroom window and quickly searched for a place to hide. His eyes locked on the ceiling, a small gap that could offer a sliver of safety. He acted quickly, tearing a piece of Amy's clothing and attaching it to the broken glass, hoping to trick the psychopaths into thinking she had escaped. David instructed Amy to hide in the ceiling, and as she crawled up, he made his move to retrieve a weapon from the front desk. But as he opened the door, a figure stood waiting. Before he could react, the cold flash of steel struck him, a knife plunging into his side. Amy watched helplessly from above, her heart pounding as she held back her tears. From her vantage point in the ceiling, she could only watch as David crawled painfully across the floor. Every movement was a struggle, each breath a gasp for survival. He prayed he wouldn't be stabbed again. Below, the manager stood, his twisted grin wide as he recorded David's agony, relishing every wince and cry of pain. It was sadism in its purest form, and the pleasure it gave him was terrifying. When the manager emerged the bathroom, he spotted the torn piece of Amy's clothing. His eyes gleamed with sick satisfaction. He immediately ordered the two psychopaths to search outside, intent on finding her. David's quick thinking had given Amy just enough time to survive until morning. She climbed down from the ceiling, her body aching with fear and exhaustion, and rushed to David's side. But as she neared him, the silence shattered. One of the psychopaths, standing just behind her, moved in. Amy bolted, racing toward the front yard. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she spotted the psychopath's car parked behind a tree. Desperation fueled her as she sprinted for the car, but the psychopath was on her tail, leaping onto the hood and smashing the sunroof with a violent crash. In a rush of panic, Amy slammed her foot on the way, the car lurching forward. Her vision blurred as she swerved uncontrollably, crashing into the hotel building with a deafening impact. The second psychopath, standing directly in front of the car, was hit with brutal force. The crash was unavoidable, and both psychopaths died instantly. Soon, Amy stumbled out of the car, her heart racing as she processed the chaotic moment. To her shock, one of the men she had just killed was the same one who had earlier helped David with the car's engine. The cruel irony hit her hard, but there was no time to dwell on it. The real threat still loomed, the manager, the mastermind behind it all. Amy fled into his room, the only place where she might find some form of refuge. She tried to reach for the gun mounted above the door, but as her fingers stretched toward it, the manager was upon her, his hands grabbing her from behind. His grip tightened around her neck. The phone cord wrapped around her throat. The struggle was frantic, each one fighting for control. The manager's fist struck Amy's face, the blow weakening her, but she refused to give in. Summoning every bit of strength, Amy kicked him in the groin, sending him stumbling backward. She lunged for the gun that had fallen to the floor, but the manager was quick to block her attempt. In a fit of rage, he threw Amy toward the weapon, and as she crashed towards it, she fired 3 shots in rapid succession. Moments later, Amy rushed to David's side, her heart pounding as she saw him lying motionless. But to her shock, his eyes flickered open, weak but still conscious. Despite the blood and the obvious pain, he was clinging to life. The sight of him on the edge of death drove Amy into action. She quickly searched through the manager's pockets, her fingers trembling with urgency. Her hand finally landed on a phone. She dialed 911, her mind racing as she provided the details of their location. The silence on the other end seemed endless, but she held on, knowing help was coming. And with that, the story comes to an end. So the moral of the story is, always double-check your hotel room, especially if it looks like it's straight out of a horror movie. And if the phone keeps ringing with no one on the other end, maybe it's time to pack up and leave.